wanted to take this time, we've talked about what's going on in Memphis. So we wanted to hear, people hear from other places, talk about what is going on in your area in terms of your struggle against police brutality and other, kind of issues that you think might be relevant to this conversation. So we have people here from Iowa and from Denver and from Columbus, Ohio. So who wants to go first?
And folks from Chicago, both of them.
Yeah, I don't know, they haven't made it back yet. You wanna go ahead, Illy? Illy's from
Sure.
Denver. Tell us what's going on in Denver.
Okay, so I guess quick introduction. I'm Illy, and I'm a member of the Denver Anarchist Black Blocs.
I
And
apologize. Is it okay if I film you?
yeah,
Thank you.
so we primarily do prison support for political prisoners and prisoners of war, most of which are people of color. And police brutality in Denver um, is just like it is other places. Nothing happens to the cops. In 2008, a black man by the name of Reverend Marbury Booker was taken into custody because the police story was that they assumed that he was high on crack. It was proven through the autopsy that he actually had none of that in his system. When he was taken in, he was sitting in central booking where he got into an altercation with an officer, and then was beat to death by six of them. And the surveillance footage of this was released to the public for court purposes because there was lots of demonstrations around this, and they just kept coming and kept coming and kept bringing him and bringing him. Justice for Martin Booker. When you're watching the footage, you see the six officers beating him to death, and then you see one of them notice that he's not breathing anymore. And then you see them all sitting around talking, scratching each other's asses, trying to figure out what to do about it. What they ended up doing was they picked up his limp body and just threw it into a holding cell where his dead body remained for hours before finally being brought to a hospital where he was legally the next day. Sometime after that, I don't know the exact date, Alonzo Ashley was beat to death at the Denver Zoo in public in front of everybody for reaching his hand into a little water pond thing on a hot day to cool himself down. And most recently, um, there was 22-year-old Kevin Ryberg, who was, police got a call that he was in a hotel room, that he had a gun and he had drugs, which he did. He was taken in on his way down to, I can't remember which district, I want to say District 5. So he was in the back of the police car in handcuffs. And their story is that he got out of the handcuffs, reached from the back seat, and was strangling the officer that was driving. And then officer, can't think of his name right now, but who's a police officer who's well known for taking people in for assault on an officer, and has been proven that that's not the case, and it's been proven that he's really racist. He's been caught on tape tasing folks of color and saying things like El Tazo, Understando, and so this officer, his story is that he saw some swerving from the vehicle that had Ryberg in it, and that he drove up beside and saw this, and just happened to have the great aim to fire a shot and kill him. Um, Except for the fact that every time I've been in a police vehicle,
know you may have events or things or marches or rallies or like, it just, does the community seem to want to get organized as a group to fight this, or what's going on with that?
The community is well aware of all this, and usually when we put together solidarity and justice marches, the turnout um, is usually pretty large. I think for Kevin Ryberg, it started with about 50 people and ended with about 200. And every time we've done one of these, we hand out literature to everybody standing by. And I feel like Denver in itself as a city is really good about addressing these issues and really solid about that.
So how is the media coverage of these events?
The media coverage, um, pretty horseshit. It covers enough, like, so like with Marvin Booker's case, because there was so much going on, the media kind of had to cover it. So to get the media to stop and to get us to stop, the judge declared it a homicide. However, the judge also said, and this wasn't covered in the media, that they weren't going to take any disciplinary actions on the officers involved, even though it was declared a homicide. And with Ryberg, there was no media attention. With Alonzo Ashley, there's very little. Um, it's pretty piss poor, but there is media presence there.
Not really. I mean, I know that I saw I was looking at television one night, a documentary on Memphis television, in fact, and they had something there about that Booker case, and they showed the same thing you're talking about, him being beaten to death. It was late one night, and I saw him being beaten to death, and they showed the movement in the streets, the protest movement, which you were right in characterizing pretty large. And of course, that's why I said every city is different. You know, this city, for instance, by contrast, because this is where Dr. King was murdered, and the cops and the power structure got away with it. And this is where all so many other people were murdered, and like you said, their hearts being broken and being demoralized and all this kind of thing, and then not having anyone organize. This place is much more difficult to organize in. But I did recognize that protest and that thing. I didn't get to see it from the beginning, but I did see the guy get beat to death. I didn't know the details of it when I saw it, you know. But yeah, there was a pretty large movement there around that, you know. But even so, the problem is it's around one case and it dies out. It's like because there's no real understanding what the fight really is, you know, against racism and police brutality on a broad-based scale, that this is actually happening all over the country and it's happening all over the city. Other people are being killed in that same city, for instance. Here, most of the people don't have an understanding about all this, their loved ones being killed is part of a whole um, struggle and a whole campaign of people being killed by the police. They don't understand that. And so it's difficult to deal with the families sometimes. We don't, I'll be quite honest, we don't organize it from the standpoint that the family is going to be the main part of the struggle. Because we recognize that the families are going through a great deal of emotional stress and confusion. And confusion. They aren't politically educated necessarily about what to do. Chattanooga was different in the sense that the family actually started the group I became the president of, or became the chairman of. They started the group, so they had more of an understanding. It was an unusual situation, but none of the other families in that place, 15 some people died. None of those people that we knew of or heard of ever organized organized anything or ever supported anything, you know. Most of them didn't even bring lawsuits or anything. And so this is a situation, you know, it's quite interesting what you talk about. So, yeah, the Denver, in some respects, it's like a lot of places, people are more advanced, but you got to factor here Ku Klux Klan intimidation over a long course of time in the South. When you're talking about racism, you got to factor that in. Even in the modern times, you got to factor that in. Ku Klux Klan intimidation, and intimidation by the police themselves, and fear of authority, so that people won't speak out. And then look at the South, and cultural independence of the South and all that. You got all those things considered.
Do you guys work with, I know you mentioned the one family that came to the demonstration, but they didn't really, they didn't want the police to know they were there. Do you all work on a consistent basis with any of the families? How has that been in Denver, you know, working with the families?
Um, from what my understanding, we don't have much correspondence with them. Um, I don't exactly know why. I would assume that, like, the families, pretty much all these families are still uh, court fighting for justice, or trying to sue the police department, and they've been really unsuccessful. I don't know if it's because they don't particularly want to be involved with our organization. That would be my assumption, but we don't actually have regular correspondence with them.
Well, I know here, one of the more recent cases here, young man who was shot to death back in January for falling asleep in his car. Um, I know his family had an attorney. They came out to a little kind of a picket we did a few weeks ago around Memphis police accreditation. But, you know, what they told us was that, well, you know, we want to come out because we want to protest, but we can't be recorded on camera because they said their lawyer has told them not to do any interviews. So, you know, sometimes lawyers, if they're trying to, if their lawyer's trying to prepare a lawsuit, I hope they do sue them, that would be great. But sometimes the lawyers tell the families not to speak to the media or to get involved with groups. We have another family here, um, Lorenzo David's case. Um, they came out in huge numbers to one of our protests. His mother works for the city of Memphis, is going to retire probably fairly soon. Her job has been threatened. They said, if you keep on protesting, we'll fire you. And she's a city worker. Now, that's unconstitutional, so she has a First Amendment right to speak about her son's death. But that's any kind of intimidation. So she's getting it on the job with the other family, their lawyers saying, don't talk to the media or whatever. So I just asked you that because I wanted to know what you guys' experience with that was.
And that's very real. Just the reality is that if they are trying to get a settlement in court, association with us would probably not help them. It would probably hurt their case more.
So how's your understanding then in terms of organizing without them? And how's your understanding of why you're organizing and so forth?
Our understanding of why we're organizing is that this needs to be brought out. The community needs to know. They need to know who the officers are. They need to know that all of these officers have a history of this, and that this is going to continue to happen if this isn't brought out to the community.
Anyone else from other cities, please?
Yeah, I can give a little bit. So I'm Kate from Columbus, Ohio. Uh, I work with Ben over here, and we mainly do. We work with a group called Redbird Prison Abolition. So we Redbird Prison Abolition. Yeah. So we basically have anybody who's organizing inside Ohio's prisons. If we have the energy to help them out, we do. That has us doing a lot of different stuff. We've got four main things we do. Um, but I don't want to talk too much about that, just because that's not particularly on police brutality. I think the stuff that I'm doing in the neighborhood that I live in, Ben also lives in the same neighborhood, that we're doing with regards to police brutality, is just very very low level. People know me and Ben as folks who work against mass incarceration and try and bring up the fact that people are being incarcerated, especially in the neighborhood that I live in, at an alarming rate. And this makes cops really cocky. And in the civic association meetings, which we have, which are fairly well attended, uh, mostly by white people. The neighborhood we live in is mostly black people. So, like, cops come to these meetings and are, they don't feel threatened in most ways. So I think one one of the ways that at least I try and work against police brutality is to say, hey, you got cops in these meetings. They're civic association meetings. A lot of folks don't want to come to these meetings because there's a police officer there. Have them step outside the room. Don't make them welcome. So this is one way of bringing things up, and just bringing up the fact that there are instances. There was an instance in Columbus. There's a park that the neighborhood is named after, where there was a chase and a cop was running after somebody, and kids are having football practice. Everybody in the neighborhood loves the football team. It's like very well attended. People love going to it. And so the cop shoots this guy in the back multiple times in front of kids who are going to football practice. So this is one thing that folks really got behind and were like, that's screwed up. Like that's a clear instance. That's very screwed up. So I guess bringing those issues up again and again and again is one thing that people in Columbus are trying to do. Um, and I think it's all very basic. People mostly in the neighborhood that I'm part of want to have things be okay, and that means just letting those instances sort of sit without being noticed or acted on. So saying like getting with the people who agree that it's not okay and just speaking up about it tends to go pretty far. Or get things moving again. Do you have anything else on that?
I think the thing that's going on in Columbus is there's a lot of very liberal black leadership. The mayor's black, there's a lot of city council members who are black, and they do a really good job of tamping down anything that happens. I talked to the coach of the football team after the incident that Kate described, and it was like the day after I called him because I'd heard about it, and he was really upset. But then by the time I saw him again, he was also the chair of the Civic Association Safety Committee, because they wanted to have a token black guy as the chair of the committee, even though the committee has their meetings in the neighborhood pride center, which is a police station. And by the time we had another meeting like that, he was done talking about it. He had like been convinced by other community leaders to stop complaining or stop being upset about it. And we've tried to work on, like, having some kind of pressure against the police, some kind of investigation. But there's this process by which any kind of incident like that quickly gets put under the rug by community leaders, and it's really difficult to, be out there trying to push these pressure points.
Yeah.
And then, 6 months later, he's no longer the chair of the safety committee. The football team is disbanded, and he's probably moving out of the neighborhood. And that's kind of how these things work. So it's really frustrating to try to organize in that kind of environment.
So what part of Columbus is that?
It's called Moylan Park. Most of the residents call it the Short North, but the Short North is
Okay,
not really
north,
part of it.
okay.
Yeah,
Because you
just
got a
north
lot
of
of
that.
blacks living east, the east
Yeah,
people.
yeah, I know some people who are organizing around housing on the east side, and they have a lot of similar stories about these kind of incidents happening and them getting ridiculed or tamped down by city
Is
government.
there a cop watch there?
No.
There used to be one.
Yeah, there was, and ARA was